Hi, welcome back to the show floor. I'm Robert Green, and I'm hosting this segment. And with me, to my right, are Cesar de la Torre Lorente. I got that right, yes?
Yeah, almost.
I've been practicing. And Dimitri Lee Allen.
Yes.
Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Cesar and Dimitri are product managers in Visual Studio marketing, tools marketing, and we are here to talk about modern apps,
Right.
and particularly how it relates to .NET developers. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about modern apps, not only today in the keynote, but leading up to it. And we want to just kind of review what that means and then really dive into what it means for developers, .NET developers building line of business apps. Sound good?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. So let's review. What are modern apps and what does it mean for the developer?
Yeah, so I think that first of all, we got to differentiate between modern apps and modern business applications, right? So on one hand, we have modern apps, which is very related to apps for mobile devices and also related to consumers and games.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, we have modern business applications. And for that kind of applications, it is also related to mobility, but those applications must rely on your current foundational applications, business applications. So you got to be extending your foundational or current applications, business applications, to new experiences, to new user experiences, and also to other scenarios supported by the cloud. And also something related to that is because of those new channels and potential new volumes of users, that's why we also need the cloud, because we might have many more users than expected. So that's why the main two attributes for modern business applications are devices and services. Devices like any phone, tablets, and services in the cloud. Yeah.
So how much of it is about mobility per se versus a pattern of building an application? So for example, you build a desktop line of business app, right? It runs on a desktop, runs on Windows 7 or maybe XP, it's running on the desktop. But you can now install Windows 8 on that desktop, right? Be running Windows 8, be running Windows Store apps on that desktop. And do I take that app running on the desktop and make it modern? Or is it really about a new type of application that runs in a mobile scenario?
Yeah.
And is it both? Is it one or the other? How do I mix and match?
So it's kind of a mix. It could be both. You can modernize desktop applications, but when you say modern business applications, it's more about mobility and also touching the persona,
the user experience. That's a very big part of it,
Yeah.
right? Let's face it, today's users are expecting everything to be very beautiful compared to yesterday's users. That's one of the biggest challenges in applications. You have just huge investments, and the investments go deep. They start the user interface, but they go down to the middle layer, they go down to the database, and you don't have to necessarily rewrite everything to make something modern. If you make it more appealing, you save on training costs, you make things, just give your business a better image, make your employees feel better about the applications that they're using day to day. I think just the landscape is changing. The app story has really spoiled us in a way, right? We're no longer just used to computers being these work things. They're now part of our lives, and when we go to work, if it doesn't match, it's hard to connect to that job 24/7 like we are.
Yeah, it's like having new user experiences, focusing more on the people. That's why social is really important here. It's not just a business application to run your business, but also to reach directly the customers or partners
Okay, so is the modern business app primarily an app you build for your customers? Is it an app you build internally? So I guess what I'm saying is there's two ways you can pivot. One is the experience, right? Let's take a canonical example. I'm a service rep. I come to work. I sit down at my desktop machine hooked up to the corporate network, and I call up the list of people I need to see today, whether it's customers or the people with service tickets. And then I want to go visit them, so I then take my laptop, my tablet device, right? And now I'm either in a connected or disconnected scenario, I suppose. Let's say I'm connected through the cloud, I go out to their sites, and now I'm essentially taking the mobile version of that application, talking to the same data through the cloud with a modern, touch-friendly, nice UI. Right, talk to customers, modifies data there, again, talking up through the cloud, come back, sit back down on my desktop, and then go to the traditional version. So that's one way to build a modern app, right? That mobile app that is running on the device, taking advantage of the mobility and the touch, or is it about apps I'm building that talk to my customers? My customers are running these apps on devices, or is it kind of both?
Well, I think that one of the things that you touched on right from the beginning, right? There's the two experiences. You have the experience of, hey, I'm an employee, I'm using something to get my job done. I might also be using it to interact with customers, and I need a bunch of facades to do that well. And I need a bunch of services to tile those facades back down to a single, core. What is my business data, and what, analytics and everything else is going to have to happen from there, or make orders, whatever it may be. So I think that that's an important aspect of it. And the customers also expect, hey, I want to be able to check my order. I mean, it's all connected. If you think about the employee and the customer as two separate entities, I would almost say that that's maybe not the best way to think anymore. I would just say you're building a set of services, you're building a set of data, you're doing certain analytics on top of it, and then you're building facades to facilitate different use cases. Touch isn't always the best thing. Sometimes it's a lot of data entry. Other times it's a touch experience, and that's how you connect it all.
Yeah, it's like having a direct connection with the customers, partners, even employees, any kind of persona. Mm-hmm. That's why probably like analysts like Forrester call this kind of application like systems of engagement. Like you are engaging new customers, new users because of the user experience, not just to run your business.
It's amazing what a user experience can do. A lot of us are developers. I'm a developer, but I do appreciate the user experience. It really changes how you feel, and how you feel means how you perform at work. It could be such a silly thing. From one hand, why are we investing into making things look good or supporting different platforms for touch and such? But then when you look at the numbers and you say, well, are people having an easier time transitioning from one scenario to the other and not need as much training? Are they happier at work? Do they feel like they work in a modern company? The world is very competitive nowadays for great employees, for great applications, for great customer experiences, and you gotta, I think, treat your workforce as customers that you want to work for you, right? If they're there, hopefully they're being productive, doing something good. The challenge for most companies is their existing investments, right? You've made the investments, you've used Microsoft technology, right? You build the web pages, web forms, or you build MVC. If you're more modern nowadays with mobile, whatever, views in there. But you also build WPF, you build WinForm. You could have built other applications, maybe you have Java in your infrastructure. And that poses a challenge. You look at it all and you say, how do I make this ecosystem of stuff modern? How do I connect it all back? And it all has to begin, and Caesar knows better than anybody, it's down at the core, right? You start with the services, your .NET powered applications probably running on servers and making them in such a way that you could eventually create more facades. Because you're not going to throw away the stuff you have today. That's going to be with you for a while. That's the reality of any size business.
Mm-hmm. So modern is devices and services? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, we could kind of simplify what is a modern app with those two
the overloaded
pillars.
term, modern app, right? I mean, we're guilty as anybody else here.
Those are the main pillars: devices and services. And services could be on-premises or in the cloud, but probably in the cloud is going to be
right. So the services side of it basically says that regardless of what type of app you're building, regardless of whether it's a WinForm or WebForm or WPF or Windows Store, you're talking to the data through services, right? So you're using those types of design patterns. You're not talking directly to the SQL Server anymore. Not doing client server directly to SQL Server. Like we did in the old days. Now everything's done through services, right? And that type of pattern is going to apply regardless of whether you're building a desktop app that is just talking to a service on the corporate network that talks to a SQL server, or you're building front ends for customers, or you're building front ends for your mobile workforce. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and I would say that you have to be very, very careful to be realistic as well. When you're looking at what you have today's story, you might look at it, it might be a little overwhelming. You might say, well, none of our stuff was built with services in mind. How many customers do we run into, right? Where we look at them and they're like, well, we just didn't build that paradigm. Everything is very integrated and tight. Well, what do we do now? Are we in trouble? I wouldn't say so. I would say that you have to understand that your existing investments were made for good reason, whatever it was. But you got to look forward at some point, and you got to make the investments that forward-looking are the industry trends that are really dominating for good reason, not because people are just spending money to build out services. Nobody says, hey, let's build a service. Let's go spend money on 10 developers for a couple of months. There's a reason for it. We're going to build it so you can connect maybe an app you're migrating that's a WPF client or WinForm, so they use the services because you didn't do that before. But now we have the power to connect the Windows 8 app for our employees, and now we can use the lessons learned to create services for Android, iPhone, Windows Phone apps that we're going to deploy. That's the future. Don't let the past hold you down.
Well, you go to that services route where you're talking to data through a service, and it now opens up a variety of opportunities.
And challenges
so it
too,
gives
right?
me the ability
Security.
to pick up this phone and work with corporate data. Maybe I want to do my approvals, whether it's an expense report or a PO or something. Right, I've got a simple app here that talks to a service, talks to that corporate data. It's authenticated, of course, it's going through the cloud. And I call up the list of my approvals, and whether I'm on the bus or waiting in the airport or down here at TechEd, standing in line to get my $99 surfaced, where I've got plenty of time to do all my approvals.
Yeah, huge line.
Then I talk to that service, and that gives me, as an employee, as a user, the ability to get my job done, outside of my desk, outside of the normal 9 to 5 scenario.
Yeah, that's where that kind of investment is paying off. But I do want to say something I tried to say earlier, which is you do pay a price. And you have to be always realistic, right? You can't just look at this stuff and say, we're going to build a bunch of services. You got to look at security. You got to make sure things are locked down. You got to learn the right way to do it. It's not that it's not the right way, but within that ecosystem of new technologies, we have this every time we have a sort of industry trend, right, come along. A bunch of stuff is learned, for new. And I think security should be hot on everybody's mind. Learn security well, build your services in the way that you can connect apps in the future, start migrating where you can, start improving UX where you can. That's how you get there, and you shouldn't be put off by the fact that you probably have a huge investment that just doesn't fit any of this. That's fine. Find places where it does.
Yeah, and also I'd like to say that within this context, I'd like to highlight .NET. So even when .NET was being created, I'd like to remember what Bill Gates said. It was in Forum 2000.
Yep.
And he said that .NET, the goals of .NET was about moving from just plain websites in the internet towards a world of interchangeable components and devices and services. And those were his words.
Yeah.
And when we were creating .NET. And with .NET you can create and develop everywhere. You can create, like we were saying, services, backend services, using ASP.NET Web API, or you can create websites with Embassy, or you can create the client apps in native applications for Windows Phone using .NET, or for Windows 8 using .NET on XAML, or even you can create apps, modern apps for non-Microsoft devices, thanks to our partners like Xamarin and ITR Mobility, and you can reuse your C# code for those non-Microsoft devices as well.
And once you have the services, rule number, I don't know if it's rule number 1 of services, but it's definitely in the top 5, is that the service doesn't care who's talking to it.
Yeah.
The service receives a message, whether it comes from a .NET app or something running on an iPhone or a website, it doesn't matter. You pass a message to the service says, oh, I should go get this data. It goes and talks, it sends it back, it waits for the next one. So once you move to this services model, then it opens up the ability to write any number of clients regardless of what you're doing, whether you're writing native Windows Store app or you're writing HTML that runs on a variety of devices. You write it once so it runs everywhere, or anything in between. again, the service doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
and what I would add to that,
that's one of the
just
key
to
points
say,
of that.
there is that learning phase, where you say, okay, where are services right from our organization? What are we trying to accomplish, right? Start there. That's always my advice. Don't just say, this is now the hammer and we have a nail to fix. That's never the right approach in technology. We as developers tend to do that. I'm as guilty as anybody else. So I'm going to say right away, let's not do that this time. Let's say, find out what are we trying to accomplish? What is our business goals? Why are we going to do this? Find places to insert services. And don't just go building services everywhere. That's not going to lead to anything except your management at some point saying, why did you guys waste all this money and where did it go? You can't quantify it. But then if you show them an app on some platform, even if it's not a Microsoft platform, that use .NET, let's say Web API, I'm just picking some technologies, and you build it all out, you've got a solution that's great. It's going to work in a way that, we typically don't think of Microsoft as the company that connects everybody, but really, we have become that with our tools. The tools speak for themselves.
Right.
Microsoft really cares about .NET, and we really care about what builds on top of .NET, and that is the web stack, and that is the desktop stack. And in the Windows 8 world, we have APIs, which we don't call them .NET, but you see the skill sets they're transferring, right? So the skill sets are just as an important part of this discussion. When you talk about .NET, you talk about a skill set. When you talk about managed languages, you talk about skill sets. XAML, that's a skill set. HTML. And it all applies to a lot of places, and you can do great things with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so services, it's very easy to get your services up into Azure, whether it's a WCF service or you're building on the web API. Very easy to take that from on-prems and get it into the cloud. Visual Studio makes that essentially a piece of cake to reuse the existing services and then just publish them to Azure. Or if you've got bunch of business logic and data logic embedded in an application, you can take that code out, reuse, all of it, most of it, put it into a service and then kick it up to Azure. So it's not a complete rewrite to move to a world of where you're doing your business logic and data logic and services and then pushing it up into Azure. Yes, of course you have to learn about authentication, but now Azure's got Active Directory, so you can tie into that, so you can make sure that it's only
You're
the right
going to have
people.
to learn. That's going to be part of it, right?
Well, there's always stuff to learn.
That's a given.
Right.
Welcome to
but
the world of development.
There's a difference between learning entirely new ways of doing things,
Just a percentage,
building an entirely new, adopting an entirely new model, or
That's our
just
advantage.
learning the code I need to write to do similar things, only differently.
But I
There's a
would
huge
say that
difference there.
that's a huge advantage that I think we have in our ecosystem, is that we have a lot of skill set reuse. I'm a huge advocate of that. People often worry about what something is called way too much, and I say, go write some code, show me code, right? And they can, because they have the skill sets to do it. I'm a big C# guy, I'm a big .NET guy, and I can go build anything from a Windows 8 app with my skill sets to a web app to whatever. I can use Xamarin. C# has become very popular across the world. So if you make the investment in yourself or your people for the skill sets, and you can build great things with it.
Yeah, and also I'd like to say that regarding modern business applications in the enterprise, where you have a ton of other services or applications on premises, moving to the cloud, Microsoft has a great advantage because we have kind of a parity between on-premises and technologies and the cloud. And also regarding security. So an enterprise is gonna need what we call hybrid cloud, because you want to put like a bridge or a link between the cloud and on premises. It's not just like you put services in the cloud isolated. And for that you need many technologies, like how to propagate credentials from premises to the cloud or vice versa, and that's a great step we have here in Microsoft.
Yeah, and look at it recently, we launched on Windows Azure Infrastructure as a Service, finally, right, RTM did, so you could take your VMs and you can really be as portable as you want. You can be on-prem with something today on a physical server, not even Hyper-V. You can virtualize that environment and put it up in the cloud, right? You've already taken a step to lower cost, lower complexity. In some people call that modern apps, right? Even if you don't change anything else, well, you're at least in the cloud.
Right.
You can use that trick anywhere, but at the end of the day, I think something is modern if the people who work with it, whether they're your customers, employees, feel good and feel you're going in the right direction. The word modern can disappear at that point, and you just got to look at, are we happy, are we productive? Those are the important things.
So does the imperative or the approach you take differ if you're small and medium business versus the largest enterprise versus an independent consultant building apps for others? Is it the same tools, same principles, or are there different flavors of this?
I would say that we have right now a great position for any of those scenarios, and I truly mean it. You know, I'm one of those realistic people that I could take a step back and say, well, no, I'm not very good there. Yeah, or pessimistic even, or maybe we're not very good there. But
you're not equating realism with pessimism, are you?
Sorry.
My wife does, but I don't necessarily.
Yeah, I'll take the hit on that. That's fine. But what I'm trying to get at is you can look at our stack today as a small business, and you can find ways to do things. Even if you're a couple of developers, you can use TF Service to collaborate for free. You don't have to set up Team Foundation and get all the collaboration stuff there for you. You can use our tools, you can learn it, you can build great things with it. They're very productive. That's always been one of our advantages. Let's face it, our Visual Studio IDE is super productive. That's why people can get in there. They can learn, let's say, .NET, C# or VB.NET and start building all this stuff. Well, we need a desktop app to do this. Okay, done. Oh, we need a Win8 app to do touch. Done. All the same skill sets, the same people. We need web all of a sudden. Done. Oh, we need to use Azure. Well, just an infrastructure. Let's go deploy our .NET stuff on there. Done. So you have a lot of capabilities no matter what size you are. It's about just about getting through that debt if you have an existing ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, or even if you do, you got to find a way forward and make the investments that make sense.
Okay, so let me ask this way. We're a development team for a large enterprise, and we totally understand the idea here. Services into the cloud. We've got people who are at their desk. We've got mobile scenarios. It makes total sense. Now let's switch to a different point on the spectrum. We are a 3-person startup that makes software for dentists. That's run in the dentist office.
Yeah.
Should we build modern apps? Should we build services? Should we be looking into the cloud?
So probably, from my point of view, maybe you're going to do it in a different way or in a different speed. Probably if you're a startup or a small company, you could migrate most of your applications to the cloud in a much faster way than if you are a large enterprise mm-hmm. where you have a lot of investment on premises. You might do it as well, but it's going to be like an evolution. And the way to do it is not throwing away what you have and creating something from scratch, but evolving it and extending it. So, like for instance, an example, you could have an ERP, and maybe we can create another subsystems for new scenarios, like for mobile scenarios or for this concrete user that is going to work with mobile devices. But at the end, it's going to rely on the same core, on the same foundational application. And that's kind of the way for large products or the enterprise.
I was listening.
Talking to the secret man behind the curtain.
Yeah. So let me ask it a different way. So we are, again, we're 3 people building startup for dentist office software. And, I'm going to ask you, why should we go this modern route? Why should we build services? What's wrong with just having everything inside the exe, inside the self-contained app? Why should we go services?
Well, I would challenge you and say, well, can you guys make money? If yes, then good for you. You're 3 guys in a basement. I'm proud. Go make a startup. Power this economy. So I'm happy if anybody's got a good business, but you've got to look long term, right? If you do something to survive, sometimes you've got to do that. That's just the reality of life. But if you look long term, you're going to see the benefit of creating an ecosystem in your apps that maybe today are more traditional. But then when you get those dentists to buy your software, they're going to all of a sudden want to see something on their phone. And what are you going to do then?
Yeah.
Then you're going to pay such a
So I guess to answer my own question, I would argue in terms of scenarios and productivity, right? So obviously, the vast majority of time that people are accessing the system, they're on-prems in the dentist's office. But I'm a dental hygienist and I need to know what my schedule is for the week, right? So why can't I get out my phone and call up my schedule? Well, how do I do that? Well, I do that if you put a service in the cloud that reads the schedule, and then I can get it on my phone and know, do I have to show up at 8 a.m. today, or can I sleep until 9? Right? The
Yeah.
answer is, well, I don't know. Do you have anybody waiting for you? And that would be a way to tell. Or you're the dentist running it, and you want to do reports. Right? What was our income this month? What's our projected income for next month?
Yeah, there's a ton of
Right?
scenarios
So
there.
you can think of it, if you're doing nothing but reporting, that makes a lot of sense to do that. Even if you're not necessarily doing the heads down data entry and managing all kinds of data.
Yeah, and
I mean,
if you just just to kind of close out one point, that's a business opportunity. That's not
Right.
just investment for the sake of it. As that small business that's building the software, you
You're
can offer
bringing
these
more
capabilities.
value through the software.
Yeah, you bring it to
Right.
the premium. So sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say that it's a new way to engage new customers because you are offering new value. I mean, most of the people are used to use apps on your mobile devices. So if you are going to go to a business and the other business has a lot of apps and you can do that action anywhere, you could go to that company instead of the other. So it's a way for startups or any company to get new business.
Yeah, stay competitive, stay cutting edge. That's what
we
the
could
world's
sit here
all
and talk about this all day. We have a question. Is there a forward-looking story for modern desktop applications? Adam wants to know.
Well, I think we have nothing to announce. I'm not going to come on this show and be like, hey, I have stuff to announce, right? But what I will say is that I have a session even at this TechEd to talk about WPF applications, and Caesar's doing sessions as well in .NET. We're going to talk about how to take existing tools and technology, stuff that's out today, nothing new, but look at the existing stack and make it more modern. There's ways to do that. I talk to a lot of customers. I used to be Microsoft Consulting, Premier. Now I'm in this new role. I'm still talking to customers, and I'm finding people not even doing the basic things. So that's what I can talk to, and that's what I will be talking to at TechEd at my
So
WPF.
watch Dimitri's session, and
modernizing
we could
WPF.
we could sit here and talk about this all day, but we're out of time. So
Yeah.
thanks, guys.
Thanks a
Thank you
lot.
for having us.
All right. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.